Well, it's been blowing up all over social media and all over some media channels as well that the Reserve Bank Governor Michele Bullock has said that stores should start charging customers for using cash. Well, that's not quite what she said, but it's still an important point, and I brought on someone who's been campaigning for the use of cash and the protection of cash and, in fact, keeping cash alive since before it was cool, before a lot of other people jumped on that bandwagon, and that is none other than Monica Smit. Monica, welcome to the Aussie Wire.
Thank you for inviting me to talk about this topic.
Well, this has absolutely blown up, and I'm really happy that it has, even though I think there's some really inaccuracies in the way that it's been reported. It has put cash and the use of cash right back on the agenda for a lot of people that really may not have been thinking about it. You've no doubt seen the headline, as a lot of people would have, the claim here from ABC News that the RBA Governor asks if Australians should pay a fee to use cash. What's your initial reaction to that kind of a concept, that idea?
It just solidifies exactly why we are using cash, which is to keep money away from the banks and back into the local community. And it's never going to fly, obviously. You could never charge a fee for processing cash. It's not going to work. So it's quite hilarious, really. Well,
to be fair, the Reserve Bank Governor, Michele Bullock, does actually acknowledge the fact that there'd be a huge amount of resistance, a huge amount of pushback. And Monica, of course, you'd be leading the charge on that pushback if they ever were to try such a thing. The logistics of it don't even bear thinking about. But there are some comments that she's made, and I'm going to play a 2-minute clip from what is actually a 40-minute speech and then interview that she did. I've read the entire transcript, and I think a lot of reports are being a little bit unfair on her. There are some concerns here, but I want to play an unedited, continuous 2-minute clip from the Q&A.
Okay, here's a question we might tackle in the big debate as well. It's an interesting one. Do we need to start reflecting on the true cost of processing cash for businesses and therefore not present it as a fee-free option for customers, while always charging customers when they use their credit card when, there's no other option really?
Yeah. So look, it is a good question, and the issue with cash has always been that businesses don't really understand, I think, the costs of cash in their business. They are at the moment, I think understanding it a bit more, but in the past they haven't really. They've called shrinkage as their main cost, which basically means theft, but really they haven't really internalised, if you like, the costs of processing. I think the challenge with cash is that it really does have a big community, public service sort of aura attached to it. If you try to charge people to use cash, they're prepared to pay to get it out of an ATM, but if businesses started charging people to use cash, I suspect there would be a very big backlash. Having said that, it's also true that as economists, you want people to face the prices of using particular services that reflect the cost of those services. So at the moment, I think we're probably in a position where it's very difficult to actually enforce payment for cash, but it's going to end up, what's going to happen, and what does happen at the moment, is that the costs end up embedded in the costs of the financial institutions that are providing the services, and people don't face them. I think it'd be a very big challenge, though, to get people to face the costs of cash.
There is so much there, so much to unpack. Now that I'm sure you've read it already, but hearing again in clarity and precisely what was actually said, unedited, like I said, what's your response to her comments there?
Oh, boo-hoo, the banks are going to have trouble doing their job. Like, their only job is to manage our money, and they make billions of dollars doing it. And if they have to absorb the cost, I'm not really sad about that.
That is the cost of their business. It's literally the business they're in. There's so many things to unpack in that. She starts out by saying that she doesn't think that businesses really understand the cost of cash. Well, she's never run a business, so she wouldn't know. She graduated from university, went and got a job at the RBA. She's been working at the RBA ever since. I would suggest that she's probably not in a position to really comment on what business owners do and don't know. She talked about the internalising of the costs of cash. Now, what's interesting about this is they also internalise the cost of, for example, their employees, the electricity that they use, the rent that they pay on their premises. I mean, this is what's known as overheads. These are the costs of operating a business. She's using this euphemism, internalized costs. It's overhead. That's what that is. Every business has it, and every business runs with it. What I find particularly interesting, though, is there's this continued suggestion that the use of cash is more expensive than cards. But that doesn't make any economic sense, because if that were true, then businesses would actually want you to use card and would actually be saying they would, instead of charging a fee for using card, that absorb the fee themselves because it'd be saving them money. What she's saying literally flies in the face of what we can see as we look at every single business around us. How out of touch must she be?
Yeah, well, the fact that she has had no other job makes no sense. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I think
Sure.
what she means is that obviously a staff member has to take that cash to the bank, which takes up time and effort. And then if you are accepting cash, you need to have change, which sometimes means you have to go out of your way to get coins and things like that. Mm-hmm. So if it's potentially half an hour a day to manage cash within your business, but it saves you thousands of transaction fees. So I think that's the point that they're making, but I don't think it's relevant either.
But again, people are rational, and business owners are always thinking about how to save a buck. If it was really genuinely true that they were better off when you used a card, then they'd be encouraging us to do exactly that. Now, to be fair, some businesses have gone cashless. They have gone card only. I vote with my feet when I come across those businesses and simply don't use their services. So maybe there's an argument to be made that some businesses are recognising the value of that. But to suggest that this is just across the board, cash is costing businesses a fortune and they don't realise it, I think is an incredibly naive thing. I want to get to another comment that she made around the shrinkage. Now, shrinkage is a euphemism for theft, as she rightly pointed out in her comment. There's shrinkage being a cost for any retail business. Theft, things disappearing from their shelves, is a cost for any business. But I can't help but reflect on the fact that the RBA is responsible for the shrinkage in the value of our dollars. Now, if shrinkage is theft, then didn't the head of the RBA just acknowledge that inflation is theft?
I think that's a really good observation, Topher. Yes.
I can't see any other conclusion to bring out of this. Now,
we're being stolen from every day, of course, by these organisations and our taxes, and it's just disgusting.
Well, they say that taxation is theft. I disagree. I think taxation is extortion and inflation is theft, because theft happens silently and secretly in the background. Now, just moving on before we go too far down that particular rabbit hole, you've been working for quite some time to encourage people to use more cash. And in the RBA's defence, I interviewed Professor Gigi Foster a little while ago about her interactions with the RBA. And she's actually been assured by the RBA that they are simply watching the numbers. How many people are using cash? How many transactions are being done in cash? What's the value of these transactions? And therefore, how much cash should we be keeping circulating? Michele Bullock, elsewhere in this same speech that we just played a couple of minutes of, does really reinforce the point that cash is important. And it's actually a vital thing to have in the economy. I mean, to her credit, she's literally saying that as part of the same speech. But you're fighting tooth and nail to try and get people to use more cash. Tell us about that campaign and tell us about why you decided that this was a particular fight that you wanted to be in.
Well, the best way to campaign is with our actions. We need to walk the walk. And they're looking at these numbers. You know, in the UK, the use of cash went up for the first time in 10 years. That just came out recently about a week ago, which means they are watching these things. And the reason I'm really passionate about it as well, I've got to give credit to Catherine Austin Fitz. She's an investment banker from USA. Most of your audience would know her. I spent 3 days with her in Holland and she mentored me, and it's changed my life. And she said to me, the reason it's important to use cash is because it's going to make it much harder for them to implement any type of digital ID or digital currency if there's more and more cash in the economy, right? And also what I feel is that every time I pay with cash, I actually imagine that I'm protesting. And it really gives me this sense of empowerment. And especially when I have the perfect change, like the 35 cents, for some reason I get this very satisfying feeling that's probably not normal. And I have this weird look on my face and the cashier's like, what is wrong with this chick? And I'm like, ooh, I've got the 5 cents. Anyway, the point is that it is so important that we empower ourselves with every action that we take. We need to be the example of what we want the rest of the world to do. Now, having cash is freedom. And if that is closed to us, it will be the end of freedom for at least a foreseeable future. And people like you and I, Topher, will not have access to money because of the way that we speak. So it is so important to keep cash alive. But that's from our audience's perspective. From a very basic outside the echo chamber perspective, it's also very easy to talk to people about this topic because it's not a conspiracy to use cash yet. right?
Sure.
And there are some very obvious reasons like saving businesses money on transaction fees and being able to hold cash and things like that. So this is a great way to talk to everyday people. And what I've experienced is I have never met someone who does not agree that we should keep cash alive. And recently, I went up the north coast of Queensland, and a lot of areas do not even have reception or FBOS machines and things like that.
Sure.
And they are all for cash. You've got tourists, of course, things like that. And also businesses save money. And this is so important. I just want to tell this really quick story.
Yeah.
So we have on www.keepcashalive.com. We have resources. We have things that you can print out as a consumer, and you cut them up into 10 little pieces and you put them inside your wallet. And every time you pay with cash, not if you go to the same place every day, because that would be really annoying, but every time you pay with cash, you just give them this little piece of paper and you say, you can read this in your own time. It's very non-invasive, and the points are very non-conspiratorial theorist ways. Okay, it's for the normal people. The points on there. I've never had a bad experience. In fact, I've had people hug me and give me discounts and things like that.
Yeah, wow.
But also that we have business posters that you can put up if you have a shop front of any sort. And I can tell you a story from a coffee van in Bundaberg. He was having 2/3 of his transactions were FPOS. And as soon as he put that poster up, it went down to 1/3 FPOS transactions. Wow. And now when his regular customers come to pay for the coffee, if they don't have cash, they basically apologize to him like he's a teacher or something. And what's really interesting is that he's actually conditioning people to think about where their money goes and who's making profit from their money. So I think this is a really important exercise for all of us, even outside the cash topic, to remember that we have to walk the walk. Now, I will give some allowance. Of course, if you're buying plane tickets, you're going to use your card, okay? Yeah. Like, I hate it when people have this, like, utopian idea that you can just, like, totally cut off the system. Of course, that's not realistic. So you're your own judge. You be your own judge, okay? And if you've got to go out of your way to get cash because you're making a point, you should do that. If you can't, that's your own problem. You figure it out yourself.
Well, Monica, I love your passion. You're certainly someone who really goes in boots and all. So this is the keepcashalive.com website where people can find those resources. Thank you so much for joining us here and helping us to dissect and understand both the comments by the Reserve Bank Governor Michele Bullock and also your Keep Cash Alive campaign. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.